Raymond. Empower your purpose.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today for another session. Today, we're going to be discussing navigating disruption and setting your practice up for success in 2023. Today, I'm joined by Don McAnally, Jessica Watts, and Matt Barzak, all part of the healthcare team here at Raymond. In this conversation, we're going to be breaking down how your practice can navigate recession, disruption, as we roll into 2023, including best practices in such as good technology, good data, and good planning. Before we jump into the conversation, Don, can you set the stage of why this is such an important topic?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. You know, over the last 3 years with the pandemic and then navigating after the pandemic with quiet quitting and the challenges that we're seeing so many of our clients face relative to maintaining their staff and providing patient care, it's becoming increasingly important, Kurt, that clients, medical and dental practitioners really need to focus on their business and how they can better strategize into the future to begin to continue to provide service, whether it's the appropriate investment in technology. You know, guys, we all saw that during the pandemic. Those that were able to pivot towards more of a telemedicine on the physician side, they were able to pivot towards a telemedicine type delivery of service. Those people were able to continue on with their practice. You know, Kurt, we've seen so many practices with the issues regarding human resources and attracting and retaining qualified talent. I'm starting to see more and more of the need for increased levels of technology to keep practices going, especially in light of the fact that they can't keep staff with them. So, Kurt, I think it's really going to be pivotal for practices in 2023 and beyond to be prepared that they've made the appropriate investments so that they continue to build upon the success that they've had in the past.
Thanks, Don. And thanks for the lead into our first category of our topics, which is the good technology. Matt, can you talk a little bit about that for us?
I think you teed that up perfectly, Don, right? We live in a world that revolves completely around technology. I almost like to think of it as a nucleus, right? So it controls what kind of information we're collecting. It controls how we're protecting that information, how we're using that information to plan for the future, and ultimately how efficient we are as a practice. So I think, every day we make business decisions based on some type of information, whether that's good information or bad information. If we're using and making decisions based on bad information as a result of poor technology or even a lack of technology, are we making the right decisions? It goes to the old saying of garbage in, garbage out. That's kind of how I think of it.
The other part of it, when we talk about maybe that's the system standpoint or more some of the operational standpoint, Matt, one other key thing is, good technology also involves up-to-date technology from a standpoint of hardware, and even some of that softwares, which would go into the protection or the security, which is another huge discussion point that I think is important for people to evaluate.
Yeah, I see. We have meetings with our clients all the time about cybersecurity. That's a huge hot topic, right? How you protect that information. I think it's even more important in the healthcare field because we have much more sensitive patient information that we need to protect. So more important now than ever. Would you agree, Don?
Matt, it is infinitely important to protect that data with all the HIPAA regulations. But, Matt, what I've also been seeing is clients that are struggling to find the budgets to pay for these increased investments in technology. And I've got a number of clients that I'm meeting with, and over the years, I've been working with them to help them develop operating budgets and focused on capital budgets as well, with them to see the benefits of making these investments in their technology and the security of providing security to the data within those technologies. So, I really look at it, guys, to say that, practices now have to really focus on having a specific line item and recognizing that we are going to make those investments in our technology from a hardware and software perspective, really on an annual basis, not look at it as an expense, but really look at it as an investment that bears fruit, that gives a return to the practice.
And I would even take that a step further too, Don, and say, can you afford not to make that investment, right? I have a perfect example of this. We were meeting with a client a couple years ago, and they were battling this process, this manual process of calling ahead, right? Calling patients ahead of time before their appointments. And they hadn't made that switch to an automated system to do text reminders, email reminders. And lo and behold, every Monday, they had a ton of no-call, no-shows. And sure enough, after we made that switch to the automated reminders, they made 6 figures to the bottom line due to that switch. So even that low-hanging fruit, those opportunities that are right there, it's just taking an initiative and making the leap.
Matt, that's so powerful to have. So many of our clients don't have the opportunity to fill their schedules up with when people no show or they call and they cancel with a little bit of notice. Those kind of reminder systems out there that allows for patients to receive a text to say, hey, you got an appointment with us 3 weeks from now, but you know what, next Tuesday just opened up, would you like to come in there on next Tuesday? And it's all done electronically. I mean, it is so powerful to keep our providers fully utilized using that.
Hey, let's talk, continue to talk about the hardware and software just a little bit more, but from a different angle. Jessica, can you walk us through some of the risk factors? What are the risks if we update? What are the risks if we don't? And what elements of that process do clients need to be thinking about?
Sure. Yeah, just to echo everything that everybody said so far, there's so many benefits in staying up to date with the technology available. As a physician, your primary concern is the health of your patients, but however, you're running a business, which means you need to deliver competitive services that show that your practice isn't stuck in the past. And you can't help anyone if you can't bring patients in. So not all new technology is going to be a significant benefit to your practice. However, there's so many new developments out there that's going to be able to provide you and your practice ongoing value by cutting down on manual processes, reducing mistakes, saving you labor, and making communication with your patients quicker and easier. It's important to do some research to make sure that the new technology you consider will be frequently used and have the correct features, and that you'll receive ongoing support from the company. This time spent up front is going to save you a lot of time and cost in the end. On the other side of the coin, it's really incredibly important to understand the risk factors with new technology that your practice adopts. So like last year, as we all know, last year was a new record for healthcare data breaches, and healthcare data is becoming more and more valuable as time goes on. And it's really important to have a strategy around protection of data, and you need to make sure that that strategy is kept up to date. Data protection takes lots of resources, and it's a team effort that should be part of your daily operations. Make sure that your team has appropriate data security training, policies and procedures are well documented and understood, and that leadership is demonstrating their buy-in and that they adopt best practices as well. It's just important to have a strategy around protection of your data, and you need to make sure that strategy is really kept up to date. So additionally, you need to make sure you keep an inventory of who your vendors are and what data you're transmitting from your system to theirs. Because if you don't know what you have and where it's stored and how it's used, you can't protect it, and you certainly can't respond well when there's an issue. And lastly, just making sure that you're staying up to speed on regulatory changes and the technology available to help you. Connect with and work with your external resources, talking with your team at Raymond, and make sure that you know what's going on in the industry to make sure you're adopting best practices.
Terrific, Jessica. Thank you so much. We're going to shift gears a little bit and let's go into the good data. Why is good data important to healthcare practices? What's the first data point healthcare practices should look at? And you know what, on this one, I think I'm going to run with this one. I think patient data of active patients or current patients is one thing that is incredibly important, because if you don't know how many patients you have, you can't schedule appropriately. You don't know how many team members that you need or how to schedule. And then lastly, you don't know how many providers that the practice really needs to provide the access to care that you want to provide the patients and that the patients require to get into your office on an efficient basis.
Of that example, Kurt, I think to dovetail off that a little bit is financial data, and specifically accounts receivable is an easy one to focus on. If we don't have accurate accounts receivable, and don't understand that it takes 30, 45 days to collect on that accounts receivable, we can't cash flow plan accordingly, right? So we might look at 1 month and say, oh, we're cash heavy. We brought in all kinds of cash because our collections were good. But that same month, our production may have been down. So the red flag in front of us might be the following month when the accounts receivable is caught up and our cash flow might not be as good as the current month.
Very true. Jessica, could you comment maybe a little bit even on the revenue per patient and the importance of knowing that aspect of your practice?
Yeah, I wanted to echo some of those points that Matt brought up too. It's really important to know where your revenue is coming from and helpful to know your payer mix. So what percentage of patients' visits and revenue are coming from Medicare or Medicaid or different commercial insurance payers, self-pay or other sources? And knowing this is going to help you understand where your money is coming from, anticipate cash flows, and build your budget out. As different payers pay claims at different speeds and rates. So like a significant amount of your revenue come from one insurer or payer. If that payer is slow to pay, you might be waiting for a significant amount of revenue while you've already paid the cost up front, which affects your cash flow significantly. Also, payer audits can come from at any time. And if one payer accounts for a significant amount of your revenue, your business can be negatively affected. You'll also want to take a deeper dive too and understand your reimbursement rate from each payer for your most frequently billed CPT codes, like your top 10 or 20, and compare that to the cost for each code. And make sure that you look at the big picture too when it comes to reimbursement. So for one payer, you might have a low reimbursement, but the other ones might be significantly higher for that payer. And it's important too to, once you have that analysis, just to review those contracts regularly, determine if there's room to negotiate a better reimbursement rate, using your current volume as leverage, and work on building those relationships with the representatives from your biggest commercial payers. We also recommend reviewing your fee schedule on an annual basis and raising it if necessary to capture any insurance money that could be left on the table. If you find that a payer is reimbursing 100% of your fee, adjustments are likely needed. Knowing about your existing payer mix too can help you build your marketing strategy to attract more patients with higher reimbursements and quicker returns. If your strategy is to attract more self-paying or patients with commercial insurance, you might want to make sure that you're managing your online presence and reputation. Are you easy to find in a Google search? Are you addressing negative reviews on payer websites? And then just lastly is knowing your payer mix can help you align your billing and collection efforts. So you want to try to collect from payers who are easy to work with and focus on those that will give you a faster return today.
Jessica, thanks for that. And you just brought up another, an important topic on the commercial insurances and looking at your fee schedule, their reimbursement, looking at how many patients you have that, that have that insurance which you participate with, which causes some of those write-offs. And, we go back to having that right data. Right now, I think it's a pretty crucial component for practices to look at on whether or not they are, they should continue to participate with these insurance companies. They might be easy to work with. They might be relatively efficient in receiving payment back. But if the write-offs are that significant or reimbursement starting to go down more and more. So I do think, practices are definitely in that process of evaluating whether or not those third-party insurance companies are going to continue to be part of their practice makeup into the future. And without great data, you're making a decision on the fly versus a true foundation to base that the decision on. Matt, any further commentary on any of that, or do you think we covered it all?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, you might be able to throw in there too, benchmarking, which is key. Knowing what your revenue per patient is, or knowing who your top producers are and rewarding those people, knowing the cost for all of those producers. You can't adequately, it's a tough word there. You can't adequately manage your staff, right, and reward your staff if you don't have accurate and good information on the front end.
Terrific. I think the last component that we want to really bring up and have for discussion is the planning component. Many know that a good plan is beneficial, but actively and fully developing the plan is what takes time and the investment to really make it meaningful. Where should healthcare practices start?
I'd like to, head into 2023 with the saying of failing to plan is planning to fail. So if we're looking into 2023, what's the one thing we can do to start? We can start with a budget and we can make a plan for the future. So using that budget and saying, okay, we know for sure we have significant changes coming. We might have an employee on maternity leave. We might have new hires coming in. We might be expanding the practice. Building these events into your budget is crucial.
Tell many of my providers, my practitioners, my business owners, the integrity of the information you base your decision on is as important as the integrity you have as a provider. It's just truly that important. Our goal, we want to take the info from the system, from the practice management system, combine them with financials, merge those together, and really create a one-stop visualization where all the planning can be efficient and meaningful. Down the road, I think our goal is to create even a greater tool from the standpoint of our clients to visually see some of their financial results with graphs and benchmarking. And then that way, the painful aspect of sometimes reviewing a financial statement, looking at numbers and percentages, we can make it a little bit more enjoyable, a little easier for business owners to better manage their practice more efficiently and much more enjoyable.
You mean not everyone loves numbers as much as you, Kurt?
They don't. People, sometimes people ask me, are you sick? I say, no, I feel good. And they're like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. How can you look at numbers every day, all day long? And it's something that we enjoy. And I continue to ask them too. It's like, how can you see the kids that are crying or, different things, and they have a passion for helping people. And so do we. We just have a tendency we all help people in different ways, and we all have different strengths and cover up for people's weaknesses. So it's what makes the world go round.
Amen, brother.
We're hearing the word recession. In fact, we're currently in a recession. As you hear the news, read the news, listen to podcasts such as these, what insight can you provide to healthcare providers about the recession and what they should be planning over the next year or so?
Hey, Kurt, I'll provide my thoughts on that. That's kind of a political football right now. We've heard both sides of the aisle talk about it. We're in a recession. We're not in a recession. Well, boy, I've never seen this term so thrown back and forth, and no one seemed to really know where we sit. But we're definitely in a challenged economic time. Okay. And I think for people to remain strong, okay, when the weather gets really bad, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that your home is well fortified, right? You got all the windows closed. You've got the furnace is in good shape. Okay. Everything, everyone, your family's all accounted for. You've got food in the refrigerator. You got food in the freezer. It's same thing in a medical practice. Okay. Are you taking care of what needs to be taken care of? For a medical practice, make sure you've got access to capital. Okay, whether it's the investment that your owners, your physician or dental owners can put in, okay, or whether it be an access to a line of credit or some other financing mechanism to help you through some potentially difficult, bumpy times going forward. Making sure, we talked earlier about making the appropriate investment in technology so that you're able to maybe get by with less of the people side, less of the people input into it is an important aspect. Monitoring all your payors, making sure that they're paying on time. Jessica, you had a lot of discussion on that today about monitoring your revenue cycle and just taking a look at your expenses and your different processes. You guys talked earlier about a budget and monitoring that budget. It's amazing to me, Kurt, how many practices kind of get caught on that autoplay. And they really don't take a look at their expense cycles to say, are things operating as efficiently and effectively as they should be? I think if we continue with a very challenged economic cycle, they're going to be compelled to take a look at these things.
And from my perspective too, I think that's great, Don. I would like to say, let's focus working more on our business as opposed to working in our business. So many times we get caught up working in our business that we forget to make some of those high level management decisions and operational decisions that could really propel us to the next level.
Yeah, that time spent up front and that small investment will definitely pay off in the end. I agree.
Well, Jessica, Don, Matt, thank you for spending time all together today. Listening to you guys, you've made me better today. And I think we were able to pass along some great ideas for all of those of you who are out there, just got done listening to this. If there's anything we can assist you with, please reach out and we'd be happy to guide you through as you enter into 2023. And thank you again for spending time with us again today.